Hello everybody, it's great to be here. I want to first of all bring the greetings from the extended European Green family. From Malta to Turkey to Georgia to Portugal to Norway, all around Europe there are Green parties that are aligning within the European Green Party, and all of them are at this moment looking very excitedly towards what's happening with the Green Party of England and Wales. And when I announced this morning on Twitter that I was coming here, I immediately got reactions saying, oh, say hello, we are really encouraged by what they do. So this is a great greetings from the European parties all over Europe. Of course, there are many parties that have had major achievements. The Latvian Greens, the Swedish Greens, the Luxembourg Greens, and the Greek Greens are represented in their national governments with ministers. The Austrian Greens and the German Greens are represented in a majority of regional governments in their countries. But none of the Green parties have yet seen a screen search like yours. And I must say, great congratulations. This is very exceptional. I don't have any comparison in my long Green memory. In membership, you're now ranking second throughout Europe. In dynamic, you're not second to anybody. Now you all know and we know that it's the electoral system that you have in this great country makes it somehow difficult to translate numerical strength into elected office. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that you will manage not only to retain Caroline Lucas's seat, but maybe with a lot of luck add another in Bristol or wherever. But the one thing that is already happening is that a lot of us beyond your shores share this nice warm feeling that you get when you're being asked about, can you tell me what's up there, what's happening? Who are these English Greens that are surging so much? They really seem to be shaking things up. And indeed, I think this is what being green is about, and this is what our societies do need, shaking up reality, shaking up what's been established for too long and is not delivering to the citizens what citizens have a right to expect. We must shake up our political systems and our economic orders. That's a need, and therefore Greens are always on the side of change. You will find a lot of differences between Green parties, but I've never met a Green party that has been a status quo party. We are the movers and shakers. And there's a lot that we have to criticize and to attack. If you look at the distance between, on one side, popular, what we would call popular democracy, and on the other side, what has to be described as plutocracy, I think, unfortunately, many of our societies are strongly moving in the wrong direction. If you look at our perennial fight for civil liberties and freedoms, and then the reality of governments curtailing these liberties and freedoms at random under the misleading promise of providing security. if you look at the issue of fair and affordable access to quality education and what you see happening. My generation was fortunate to be able to rise socially through education. In this day and hour, in many countries, this is not any longer the case. So there is much more of a status quo orientation also in the education system. We have to fight for a change there also. Look at the contradiction between, on one hand, respect for every individual, or on the other side, spreading a policy of exclusion, of hate, of xenophobia, of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim fervor, of sexism or excluding LGBTI. It's clear on which side Greens stand. Or look at the fight over a good, a valid, a needed contribution to global sustainable development goals that our societies have to deliver. Look at the distinction between social inclusion and, on the other hand, social division. Look at the issue of green transformation. We just had a workshop with Derek about climate change policy and how much this whole globe is in need of a green transformation of all our economies to fight not only environmental degradation and the very negative impacts of climate change that we're already experiencing, but fighting also for a good economic developments in our countries. So Greens are about criticizing that and fighting against those negative tendencies, but Greens are also about providing solutions. And I think if Greens want to be successful, we have to merge those two approaches, being critical and providing solutions. So, for instance, we're working in the European Parliament, and I don't know where Jean is, but she's one of the leaders over there. She's one of the leaders of this fight. We're fighting for economic and social policies that would deliver green jobs in our countries. I think if you look, you will find positive examples in many countries around Europe. It is a core responsibility of Greens to make that more visible and to make that a central appeal of all our campaigns. Because a lot of people will go for green policies because they love the environment, they love nature, but there are also others who, in a crisis in particular, go for so-called bread and butter issues first. And let's not be hypocritical and denounce that. What we should do, what we must do, and what we can do through green policies, we can help them, providing an alternative to the failing policies, failing economic policies of the mainstream and of our governments. And if we combine both appeals and both approaches, helping the environment, helping the climate, and helping creating a foundation of a better economy, that's what will make Greens convincing opponents and convincing advocates of a complete and promising alternative to the status quo. We've used the phrase Green New Deal a lot, saying let's combine three policies. A policy of economic transformation, of green innovation, a policy of green investment, with a policy of social inclusion, and a policy of macroeconomic re-regulation. That includes, for instance, the circular economy. I think we all should lambast our governments over the fact that they are not fighting enough to make that perspective even stronger. And it's very deplorable that we've not been successful so far in preventing the European Commission from withdrawing a package, a legal package, with proposals for a stronger circular economy. Industrial symbiosis is another very pertinent policy, or a renaissance of industry for a sustainable Europe focusing on energy and resource efficiency. All of that, I think, is should be very much at the center of what we discuss with our constituents. Then let's talk about TTIP. There we have to be solution providers also. And their solution, the solution is not saying A and amen to what is being proposed, but clearly stating an alternative future. No to lowering of any of the standards, be that health protection standards, be that social standards, be that environmental standards, whatever. No to any lowering of standards. No to the secrecy in which these negotiations are being conducted. No to so-called ISDS. It's a technical phrase. It means investor-state dispute settlement mechanism. And what it really means is that major global investing companies that have already fought for many years to break loose from the control of legislators and regulators are now trying to break loose also from the legal system, from the court system, and want to have their disputes resolved in private tribunals where elected officials have no way of really stating their goals and making the public good really the most important criterion for policymaking. We say no to a regulatory cooperation that would undermine the legislative responsibility of our parliaments. We say no to what some of them are advocating as a kind of an 11th commandment, privatization of services wherever possible. The alternative sometimes is a big no. Every new idea, every new policy starts with a clear no to the failing policy. It doesn't stop there, but it will never take off until we clearly denounce what is wrong. We also have something where we have tried as a Green family in the European Parliament and beyond that to change track, and that is austerity. I'm really feeling bad to be representing also a country that justifiably has been accused of pushing hard for the politics of austerity. Not the only one, but unfortunately the German government has been very instrumental in pursuing that policy. That has failed not just the Greek people, not just the Portuguese, not just some countries along the southern rim of the EU. It's failing all of Europe. And as regards Greece, the European Greens have agreed on 3 very simple and clear definitions of what should change. No to austerity, alleviate the debt burden, and help the Greek people for reforms that would create a transition towards a greener economy, which they need to gain a new hold and to have their feet on the ground again, because their economy has been shattered by the events over the last couple of years. That's what we all should come together to do. We also are solution providers as regards the fight against tax evasion. Per annum, according to calculations of experts, taxes to the amount of 1 trillion euro per year are not being paid as they should. Sometimes because of schemes like has been made public through the LuxLeaks scandal, tax rulings that are de facto tax-exempt rulings, that are handing privileges to major companies. I mean, this is not, to put it to the extreme, this is not even business friendly. Because small and medium-sized companies don't benefit from that. It is friendly only to the big business. It's not a market economy, it's a big corporation economy. And lastly, but certainly not the least, we are solution providers regarding energy policy. I'm so happy that many of you are fighting against fracking. I happen to be the one MEP that started the first parliamentary initiative against fracking in 2009. So I've been with this movement from the beginning. We should not just fight fracking, we should also fight all the fossil fuels, and we should fight against what some people try to bring about, a so-called renaissance of nuclear. The British, the French, the Polish, and 5 other governments are now teaming up to try to convince European policymakers that taxpayers' money should be spent on new subsidies for nuclear, lavish subsidies for nuclear. I think that's something we should all unite to fight against. The great thing about the European Greens is, all the points that I mentioned, we stand united throughout Europe. And we stand behind you in your fight for these goals or against these policies that we should change. And the other great thing about you is that in your fight, you are creating so much hope and enthusiasm and support for everybody else among us. Thank you for that, and keep it up.